So, basically, the people my heart reaches out for the most are the broken people, like the gang members, people that are stuck in like addictions, bondages. But the gangs are a hard one because most of those kids have been abused or don't have two parents and found their life in a gang, whether it's drug trafficking or a street gang. And California is so full of street gangs. During that period in the 90s where they were locking everybody up, they were literally creating more gangs. I mean, they would send, I said something about in one of my books that Sally the soccer mom's skinhead son, Sally the soccer mom's son goes to prison for a drug charge and comes out a skinhead. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a machine clicking people up to try to defend themselves, and then they come out like with this gang background now all of a sudden just because they went to prison. You know what I mean? So my heart reaches out.
It's almost like you get rewired in there.
You do, man.
Like
You do. It's violent. It's violent, man. Who's going to figure out who uses what toilets, who gets to walk where, who gets to use what bench, who gets to use what table? Everything is a war for airspace and territory in there. So it's a gang-producing machine. And so my heart goes out to them. And I've run across all of them in California, to the highest ups, from the Hoover Street Crips, the Bloods from San Diego, and a little bit in LA, and they were the outnumbered ones. And Jumpin' Jack is the one I was mentioning from Solano. He was cool, man. He was a lifer. And so then, yeah, the smaller gangs for the whites, you know, I don't want to put all their names out there or put their stuff out there, but it goes all the way up. I remember one time I was at Chino, and I was out to court on that one where I did that riot, and I was fighting an out to court case in San Bernardino. I mentioned all that stuff about San Bernardino, and one of the prison guards brought, that's how I know about that calling card for the Aryan Brotherhood. He brought it to my cell and said, "Is this yours? I found it right outside your cell." And it was the 666, the dice, and the AB. Dude was recruiting me to go to the hole at Palm Hall. He was, if I would have said, "Yeah, that's mine," to Palm Hall. So they create a lot of that instigate mentality, you know what I mean? Chino Central has Sycamore. They got a little thing above it says Stickamore Hall. You know, they don't even care. They let you, they have broken glass. They got glass on the ground you can cover up with sheet and use it for a weapon. They let you have tons of weapons there. There's 3 tiers. That whole place is just a machine for violence, you know what I mean, and gangs, and so that's Chino Central. And so yeah, my heart goes out to people stuck in that, because they get out, and what options do they have? You know what I mean? They're like, so I relate it to these military guys that have seen crazy stuff, and they come out here, and who do they kick it with? You know what I mean? Their wife doesn't understand them. You know what I mean? The community doesn't understand them. That's why they have that high suicide rate. And so I'm in a cell that used to be a Mexican cell. So watch this. A letter shows up from David Hawking, Hope for Today Ministries, who's a prophecy guy right here in Tustin, and it's to a Mexican dude. And I'm like, it shouldn't even have got to my cell, but it's from a church. I want to open it, you know what I mean? And so I get at the Mexicans. We had a dude from, we had Little Bird from Long Beach Harbor area, who was a Mexican mob dude, said he was. And we had this other dude, Boxer, not the notorious one, not Rene Enriquez, but another boxer that was 7 floors underground at the Colorado institution, that was coming out, doing an out to court deal. And that was the dude we all looked up to, because he just came from that 7th floor underground where the heavy hitters were. Yeah, Florence. And the dude was as cool as can be. The coolest dudes in the world sometimes, you know what I mean, are in there. Some of the coolest people I've met are gangsters. You know what I mean? Because I have more trust with them.
Yep.
And this dude right here, I'm like, hey, can I open this? Where is this dude? And he's like, that dude paroled like a year ago. So this letter gets to me after a dude paroled like a year ago in a cell that used to be a Mexican cell. That's how random this is. I open it up, and it's this little note says, here's what you asked for on how to write books. 7 pages on how to write books.
So this guy had done this. Was asking for the info.
Yes. I get this info after I've given up on writing. Like I can't write good enough. You know what I mean? This sucks. And so now I'm seeing what I did wrong, right? A beginning, middle, and end, right? A good over evil. God, he said the Bible created like all the books and all the movies based on this principle of God over evil, and just all these tips I didn't have before. So I'm sitting in myself thinking about it going, yeah, I got to write differently than I did for the first time. I changed the name of the book and started writing again. I got the typewriter. I became the barber. Even though I didn't know how to cut hair, I wanted to be able to get out to the yard. You know what I mean? With the barber box. The barber box could get to both top tier and bottom tier.
You already allowed you to say, hey,
yeah, I took over the yard and said, this is how we're doing the drug policy, blah, blah, blah. And how you take over a yard is the intake building where everybody comes. You make sure that building's run right. You have a kite that says, welcome to the yard. This is how we're programming. Everybody's got to show up to this table. You know what I mean? We have this kind of drug policy. Everything's off the shelf. No drinking on the yard. You know, everybody's got to work out. You got to meet here. We need your paperwork. We need to see what you're here for. You know what I mean? And so that's how I started it there. And so now I'm getting to both yards, and I'm rewriting this, and I'm catching fire again. Like that whole year I was writing, I felt empowered by God that everything that I had done wrong is going to get turned around through writing. But at the end of that year, I'm like, no, it ain't. You know what I mean? I'm looking at it going, no, it ain't. This sucks. So when I got that little note showing me how to rewrite it, it was back on fire again. You know what I mean? But I'm still kind of like running the yard and stuff like that. So it was a spiritual.
It requires a lot of mental concentration.
Big time. I've been waking up at 3:30 in the morning for like 18 years now. Ever since I started writing, I wake up because I had to wake up before the politics of the yard. You know what I mean? So I'd write early to get into it, and then deal with the yard, and then come back and have a little bit more going. And so now I'm like on fire again. Yeah, this is going to work. And the writing was different, right through the character's eyes, show his motivations, you know what I mean? So you could establish what the character's like. And I didn't have none of that before. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, this works. Now I can really explain my character. And that process right there started helping me see where I was living as if I was God in the drug war, and why I was in the wrong. No matter how mad I was, no matter what went wrong in my life, I was a part of evil, basically. You know what I mean? Like I was a component of evil. And I never looked at myself that way. I looked at myself like I'm righteous. You know what I mean? Like it's the whole world that's wrong.
The devil's work.
Yeah, I realized that. I'm like seeing flashbacks. Yeah, I should have known when I saw the Hell's Angels jackets and the Devil's Disciples. You know what I mean? I should have known in prison when I saw the 666 on the Aryan Brotherhood calling card. You know, they're yeah. I should have seen this earlier and realized I'm being used by the devil in this whole process. And I started realizing that as I'm writing. At the same time, this stuff's going down. I'm running a yard. While I was on that yard, it was a war between the Mexican blacks for like 2 years. It was a gnarly war. They were getting busy, right? All the time. And the Mexican guards were keeping it going by saying, you know, that the Mexicans are going to get you. And they'd say that on the tier, and I'm like, that's not right. You know what I mean? Like after the blacks got them one time, they're like, you mess with one bean, you're going to get the whole burrito. And they're stirring it up so that it's going to keep going. You know what I mean? So I covered a lot of that in that first book. You know what I mean? So I connect that with the same mentality of a person that's trying to leave a gang and trying to leave a drug life behind and trying to, man, I went and spoke at a homeless shelter, and I saw this black dude who was an ex-gangster dude who was a trafficker, and he was trying to get right with God, and the dude was on fire for God, and the community wasn't there to help him. The church wasn't there to help him, and I was mad, you know what I mean? Because this dude's on fire for God. I like to encourage everyone that they got their own ministry, whether they know it or not. Like, you got a ministry, you've been shining a light into the prison systems, you've tried to help out, you helped out that guy that got railroaded, white boy, Ricky, is that it? Yeah, so you got a ministry, bro. You're ministering for God, shining a light on darkness. You know what I mean? So like, I encourage you that you already got a ministry if you even know it. You know what I mean? We all got our own little ministry trying to help, because we don't want to hurt. We don't want to see people suffer. We know where we were. We know what was wrong. You know what I mean? And so for me, I would say where I'm at is because God's got me completely in the Bible. I can see that the devil got kicked out of heaven for wanting to be like God. It says he wanted to be the leader of the congregation in the north, and scientists have figured out the north is the highest part, so that's where the highest heaven is. And so he got kicked out for wanting more and for wanting to be like God. So now I'm learning more about like what held me in bondages. So whether people receive that, because I'm pretty hardcore going this way now, or not, they're hearing it. You know what I mean? So they're going to receive some of it, you know what I mean? And if it's meant for them to receive all of it, it is. But this is just where God's got me. I mean, if he wouldn't have got me that letter at Centinela saying this is what you asked for on how to write books from a prophecy dude that I didn't ask for, I'll probably still not believe that, you know what I mean, the way I believe now. But because that letter arrived, I believe everything happened for a reason, and so this is how I'm doing it now. And